work my lighting so I don't look not so weird. Guess it'll be what it is.
There it is. That's good.
Yeah, better.
Yeah, yeah.
We have more people coming, right?
Yeah, I wasn't keeping track. That's so I didn't see.
I thought we had.
And Anna was on for a while, but she doesn't.
I
I don't
don't-
know if
Why
she's
is
here.
everybody
For
coming
some
on?
reason, she's on as an attendee. And there she goes.
There she is. All
So is
right.
Tom.
Sorry, guys, I'm having some trouble with internet over here.
Okay, so is Tom coming over?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. You can't see me, and I'm not sure why. I have promoted Tom on multiple occasions to come over as a panelist. I'm not sure what is
He
happening.
declined. I tried it too, and it said he declined.
But in order to participate as an agency member, you need to come over as a panelist, Tom. I'm assuming this is the same Tom Clancy. And
Mark
Anna is
Brophy's
an
on as an
attendee.
attendee as well.
So is Bob Zedon. No one is using their links.
No.
Well, Lee and I did.
I did.
I'm proud of you. Thank
Bob
you.
and John are
Do we
just
get- do we
promoted.
get bonus points?
Yeah. I'd have to decline mine because it's purely by accident.
I used the
Joe's
link
on
that
as an
was,
attendee.
So
Hold
Martin
on.
is here.
Yay.
I just promoted Joe.
Okay, getting the gang here.
I'll work on my screen here.
yeah, I just used the link that came in the email. I don't know if I'm not supposed to use that one, but
You're here. You made it. That's enough.
whatever.
We found you.
Thank you.
Clancy's still not working.
What's that?
Clancy's back to an attendee.
What are you trying to do?
Tom Clancy?
I'm not sure. What?
He's not coming back. He's as a attendee, not a panelist.
Yeah.
No. He's been invited multiple times, so I'm not sure if maybe it's how he's dialing in. I'm not sure what's going on.
Maybe there's confusion around what link to join in on. I just joined the one that was emailed to me saying that's for the meeting tonight, and it looks like I'm not. You have to let me in as a panelist. So
Well, we send out a Zoom link
yeah,
and then
that's
the
that's what I jumped in
agenda has
on.
a link that's like the public link to join a meeting. But you get a Zoom link, which is your panelist link.
I think I got the public one, and it was a Zoom link, so it's
Yeah, I
No,
confusing.
you get one from Zoom is what I'm saying. And then you get the agenda that has a link on it.
It says, "Please see below for the wetlands meeting link on Monday."
Yeah, that's the link to the agenda. But that will make you join as an attendee. And when you get the link, the Zoom invite, special just Zoom invite, that's
I
your
didn't get
panelist
one.
link.
I didn't get one.
Really?
I didn't get one this time either.
Yeah, I
Okay.
didn't get a Zoom in.
No,
And it's,
when I created it, they went out, they might have been like last week. I don't, usually it sends an update the day of.
yeah, I didn't get one, and it says, wetlands meeting link, so it's a little bit
That's okay. Everybody's here
confusing.
now. We found everybody.
Yeah, just for the future, maybe there's a way to change that language or do something a little bit different, because I think we're all getting hung up.
Yeah, it should just be that's a link to the agenda, either the documents. So we can reword that in the email
Okay,
going
and then
out.
you're saying there should be another Zoom link
comes-
just from,
Yes,
from
it comes
Zoom?
directly from Zoom as a reminder right ahead of the meeting.
They may still say from Dave Anderson, because that was the account I have.
Yeah,
No,
So-
I didn't get one of those this time.
I didn't
Okay.
get one this time either. I usually get one, and I didn't get one this time.
me neither.
Okay. Sorry about that. Well, we do have,
Yeah, we can.
let's see, Anna. Bob needs a passcode. Okay, passcode to dial the phone in is 954207. Hopefully we can have Bob get some sound and audio here, and then we can get started. And Anna can hear us and see us all, but her video is not working. Anna, can we hear you?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay, yep.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Perfect.
Okay.
Well, so Bob needs to be moved over. He's just saying,
Yeah, as soon as we see him. So join that way and we'll promote you. Okay,
okay,
so I can start recording for you, Madam Chair.
that would be great. And I will open up the meeting of the Inland Wetlands and Watercourse Agency for Monday, November 6th, 2023 at 7:07 p.m. We have in attendance the members Lee Schumacher, Martin Brogy, Joseph Boudreau, Bob Zidon, Anna Loss, and is maybe Tom when he moves over. Hopefully.
Well, yeah, as of now, I would.
As of now,
not
we
see
don't.
Tom, because he's not able to participate.
So just those without Tom. All right. So our first agenda item is 23-39 Longshore Lane. This is a public hearing continuation that we had from last time. My understanding is there's a request from the applicant to extend to the December 4th meeting. Is that right?
Correct. There is a request from the applicant that is to continue the hearing to the December 4th, 2023 meeting. And as part of that, the applicant is waiving this statutory timeframe associated with those extensions. And I can read you the letter from Attorney Crosby to that motion. One second. The letter reads, Dear Aaron, please accept this letter as my client's request to continue the Inland Wetland Agency public hearing scheduled for tonight, November 6th, 2023, to the next regular scheduled Madison Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency meeting on December 4th, 2023. As attorney for the applicant, my client is waiving the statutory requirement for the agency to complete the public hearing as set forth in Connecticut General Statutes 22A-42A subsection C, together with all applicable extensions. The statutory language is directory and not mandatory per Karen versus Inland Wetlands, 222 Connecticut 269. That's a 1992 case. We understand that the agency's failure to act will not constitute an approval or denial of my client's application. In light of Attorney Jonathan Kaplan's letter sent to you late Friday, November 3rd, 2023, including the 28 pages submitted therewith, my client needs additional time to respond to the next agency meeting. Sincerely, Thomas E. Crosby. So,
okay,
there would be a motion needed by the agency to continue that hearing to December 4th.
Okay.
I move we continue the public hearing for application 23-39 Longshore Lane until our next regularly scheduled meeting, which I think is December 4th.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Raise your hand, say aye.
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 Excellent. Okay. Well, then we will see Longshore back in December. The next application is also a public hearing that's been continued. This is application 23-49, 24 Old Schoolhouse Road. And I believe we'll probably have Mike Ott here to speak for this. And do we need a motion to open? I can never the hearing, or because it's continued, we can start.
Or you can motion to reopen, that's fine.
I move that we reopen application 23-49, 24 Old Schoolhouse Road that was continued from the September 11th, 2023 meeting.
All right. I'll second. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
All right. So we are in our public hearing. And
Madam Chair, Could I
Yes.
just allow this telephone number to answer us real quick to see if this is Bob so that we can hear him and participate? Bob, is this your number, 860-388? Can you hear us? It's muted, but I was hoping to see if Bob can get some sound to participate here.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Is that Bob?
It is. Excellent.
Oh, good. Okay. Yay.
All right.
Small victory. Okay, great. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say where we left off is we had a discussion in September, and the applicant was going to go back and kind of revisit the plans, and has since resubmitted plans plus an environmental assessment from Davison Environmental. And so I guess, Mike, we can hear from you. If you want to kind of go through the new plans.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Just for the record again, I'm Mike Ott. I'm a licensed professional engineer and land surveyor with Summer Hill Civil Engineers and Land Surveyors here in Madison. And as you said, Madam Chairman, Matt Davison from or actually you didn't say this, but you said we have a report. But Matt Davison from Davison Environmental is here also. And we're here representing Kent and Susan Allen, the owners of the property at 24 Old Schoolhouse Road. Could I share my screen, and I'll just go over the revisions to the plan quickly,
Yes.
and then Matt will be able to go over his report, and then we can answer any questions you might have. So we made some revisions to the plan, as you said, and as Erin noted in her staff report. So if you recall, this is, if you can see my cursor, this is wetland flag 11, this is 12, and this is 13. And there was a triangle. If we drew a straight line between 11 and 13, there was a triangle of area within the inland wetland that we were proposing to fill. We had showed, if you recall, we had showed you an alternative plan in the last meeting that included a retaining wall that would avoid the placement of fill within the inland wetland. This plan reflects that alternative. It's a bit refined from what we showed you, but this hopefully, again, you can see my cursor. I'm following along the retaining wall. It's this kind of hatched double line here. It's a very short wall. It's no higher. Its maximum height is 3 feet. Here it's only 14 inches or so, and here it's only a foot high. And it's a segmental retaining wall that can be constructed without causing a lot of disturbance on the down side of the retaining wall, meaning the side closest to the wetland. So the sediment control barrier is this dark dashed line that's set 2 feet off of the face of the wall. And the wall can be constructed mostly by hand. The only equipment that's really needed is a small skid steer to place the base stone for the foundation of the wall. And after that, it's really handwork. And again, it's a very short wall, although it's a little long, but it's no more than 3 feet high at its highest point. So the wall allows us to not place any fill within the inland wetland. The wall is 8 feet. The face of the wall is 8 feet from the back of the house and from the back of the driveway here. The other changes, the only other changes we've made to the plan are that we've called out the patio to be constructed as a permeable surfaced patio. We've also called out, although we had intended to do this, we called out the driveway to be constructed with a permeable surface. And there's a typical section included in the plans. We also changed the grading of the driveway pads so that it's flat. If you recall, the last time it was graded to drain to the east to provide the longest overland flow path to the wetland. Now it's graded as just a flat area. If you remember, the driveway itself drains back towards Old Schoolhouse Road. Oh, and we also changed the markers. Let me see if I can switch sheets without having to stop sharing and reshare. Can you all see the change in the sheet that I just made?
Yes.
Mhm.
You can? Okay. So we changed the marker to a no disturbance marker. I think this is what we all decided at the last meeting. So I'll go back. And again, we have a note on here that the final wording of this would be based on what you guys would like to see. That's what this note 1 says. But this is just a first shot at it. This marker plaque doesn't exist now, other than the graphic, the logo in the center. That's your actual plaque that you have today. So if we go back to the first sheet, we've called out those markers here to be installed. I have them roughly every 30-35 feet or so, and they're right along. You can see these squares with the circle around them. They're right along the sediment control barrier. I think, yeah, I think that's a summary of the changes. Do you have any questions about the plan now, or would you like to hear from Matt in a summary of his investigation of the site and his report?
Well, from the plans, the back of the back of the house is now 20 feet from the wetland at the closest?
The back of the house at the closest point. So this back corner would be the closest point.
Mhm.
From the back corner to the face of the wall is 8. So this looks to be another 6. It's probably about 14 feet. The closest point would be a straight line right here.
Okay.
And as you can see, that's because of this wetland flag 12. And as you can see, the boundary goes away and the boundary goes away again.
Any other questions for Mike right now? Okay, well, we can hear from Mr. Davison.
Okay. Okay, Matt, you want me to, would you like me to share your report, Matt?
Yeah, if you don't mind, Mike, and then maybe go to figure 2 to start.
Okay.
And then maybe a couple photos. Actually, go to the photos first, Mike.
Okay. One sec.
So for the record, Matt Davison with Davison Environmental, professional wetland scientist, professional soil scientist, certified professional erosion and sediment control, and a Connecticut forester. I was asked by Mike to take a look at this project to essentially do a wetland evaluation and provide some recommendations as far as minimizing any impacts to the wetland, essentially a wetland assessment. I believe that you have my report, which was submitted last week. I met Mike on the site. The wetlands were originally flagged by Rich Snarsky. Though I thought I agreed with the wetland boundary. I felt like the wetland boundary was substantially correct. most of the site is occupied, as I think I'm assuming most of the commission members have seen it. The majority of the site is occupied by a forested wetland. There's a strip of uplands around Old Schoolhouse Road. The wetland boundary I would characterize as sort of broadly transitional. It's somewhat typical of sort of the wetlands you find along the shoreline, where you have a wetland boundary that is, the substrate is extremely stony. It's sort of a complex of moderately well drained and poorly drained soils. In this case, there's dense clethra. And then there's about 30 to 40 feet of that transitional border before it drops into the main part of the wetland, which is seasonally flooded, a much more abrupt transition in hydrology. These photos, I think, illustrate it pretty well. If you're looking, the top photo there, those flags that are in green were originally the flags that were going to be in the sort of, that were going to be the wetland filling. The wetlands to the left, the retaining wall would be more or less just to the right of those flags there. And then you can see sort of to the left, I guess it's not completely easy to see, but the ground is not too dissimilar from the ground to the right. And if you go down to the photo at the bottom there, Mike, that is, I'm literally standing on wetland flag 3, which is at the other end of the lot. Again, I would call this a transitional boundary. So to the right is actually wetlands, to the left is uplands. And then, again, it's sort of broadly transitional until you get down to the main part of the wetland, which if you scroll down to the next page, Mike, you can see the difference. One of the things I noticed when I first did a site inspection was that a good portion of the wetland interior on the site I would characterize as having potential vernal pool habitat. That I'll show in a second here on my figure. I have it outlined, but this here is looking at the potential vernal pool habitat that is closest to where the site development would be. You can kind of see some orange on the right-hand side there of the photo. That's my vest sitting on the ground in an upland. The house would be to the right-hand side of this photo, probably 40 to 50 feet, maybe 50 feet back. I would characterize the potential vernal pool habitat that's closest to the proposed house as being the most marginal. That's this area here. I'm not sure that if I went in here in the spring that it would actually, this portion of the wetland would qualify as a vernal pool. There's a little more of a gradient here. I suspect much shorter hydro period here, but I lumped it in to be conservative. And if you go down to the next photo down, this is sort of what's typical further to the east. This is below wetland flags sort of 6 through 8. This is beyond the footprint of development, but to the east of where the residence is going within the wetland, much of the wetland interior looks like this. And I think that, this looks like pretty good vernal pool habitat to me. I guess the only question would be, is there enough upland around here to support vernal pool amphibians? And I wouldn't be able to know conclusively unless I looked at it in the spring, but I've called this a potential vernal pool habitat, and for the sake of this application, sort of going forward as if this was a vernal pool. If you want to go up, Mike, to figure 2, which I think is a few pages before this. Oh, actually, I'm sorry, it's down.
Okay.
Yeah, past the photos. I'm sorry, Mike.
Yep, no worries.
Yeah, the next one there. So this is a map showing, we basically overlaid the delineated wetland boundary onto the an aerial, and then the potential vernal pool habitat that's shown crosshatched was the area that I GPS to the interior. I did a wetland functions and values assessment using the Army Corps highway methodology. The 3 principal functions that I identified here are groundwater discharge, for obvious reasons. There's surface water in the wetland interior. Sort of the very bottom right-hand side of this, which would be the southeast corner of the lot, there's actually a perennial water course that drains from this wetland beneath Old Schoolhouse Road. I believe it might be just off site. It's close. But regardless, certainly that's a mechanism for groundwater conveyance from the site. The other principal function that I identified was flood flow alteration. This wetland is actually a headwater to that perennial watercourse, which is an unnamed perennial watercourse that drains to Bailey Creek, I believe. Headwater wetlands are sort of well known for being very important for flood flow alteration. As at the top of a drainage area or the top of a watershed, wetlands that can hold water and discharge them or meter them out slowly. It obviously diminishes the effect of floodwaters further down in the watershed. So again, headwater wetlands almost always would be identified as having flood flow alteration function. The other thing that's enhancing that function in this particular case is the fact that you have an outletting watercourse. That watercourse is constricted to some degree. It's not discharging sort of, as openly as it would if it wasn't piped. That's probably also lending to the vernal pool habitat. It's created to some extent. It's influencing this seasonally flooded hydrology in the wetland interior. There's also residential development in the area, which is probably contributing to some degree to stormwater, although I wouldn't characterize it as dense residential development. And then finally, the final principal function identified was wildlife habitat, and that is by virtue of the fact that minimally you have potential vernal pool habitat in here, which would elevate the wildlife habitat function. The development overlay that you see on this map was taken right from CAD, so it should be more or less spatially accurate. We have overlaid the vernal pool envelope on here as that blue and white dashed line. Typically, you would want to stay outside of the 100-foot review or the 100-foot vernal pool envelope to comply with vernal pool best development practices. In this case, we are just inside. Again, it's sort of bordering the part of the potential vernal pool that I would say has what appears to be the lowest quality habitat. And again, as you go further east, the habitat improves substantially. So where the habitat is best, we wouldn't be within the 100-foot of that area. And there's no work proposed in the uplands adjacent to that area. Within my wetland impact assessment, I sort of broke out two things. I broke out here sort of a potential for short-term impacts and a potential for long-term impacts. And I've made some notations for recommendations, most of which have been adopted. Basically, Mike and I worked through these things together. As far as the short-term impacts go, I have referenced, erosion controls as important. In this particular case, I'm not very concerned about construction phase impacts to the wetlands, given the small development size, the really small limit of disturbance. So if you put in silt fence on a site like this, I would not anticipate any discharges to the wetlands from construction. The other recommendation I had under potential short-term impacts, although I will say that this really could fall under short and long-term, and Mike and I discussed this in the field. There is a lot. The site is wooded, as everyone has seen, and to whatever extent the larger mature trees can be preserved near the retaining wall, I think that would be very beneficial. So what Mike and I discussed was essentially, having us before construction, have a limited disturbance flagged out and have orange construction fencing put up around as far out from the tree trunks from some of the larger trees that are in that area to try to preserve them or minimize impacts to the drip line of the trees, which is typically where your root zone is, and the ability to avoid impacts, especially compaction and filling over the root zone of the trees, will help to minimize the potential for mortality to those trees after the site is built. as far as long-term impacts go, my first one here is obviously wetland avoidance. So the first discussion Mike and I had is obviously what can we do to avoid wetland impacts altogether? The solution there was this retaining wall. By incorporating the retaining wall, we've eliminated the wetland impacts, which I think is a good thing. The other discussion that I had with Mike is minimizing impervious cover on the site. And so, as Mike stated, he has added notations to the plans to specify that the patio would be pervious, to specify that the driveway would be gravel or some pervious substrate to allow for infiltration as opposed to sheet flowing over it. Aside from that, the residence itself is very small. The septic system is, I believe it's about 50 feet away. It meets the DPH's minimum setback requirements. It's really as far away as we can get it here. Mike and I discussed this as well. I think it's situated in a logical area related to the wetlands and related to the development. And then my last point here for minimizing long-term impacts. I mentioned again that typically you'd want to avoid working within 100 feet of a vernal pool. In this particular case, we're just creeping inside of that 100-foot vernal pool envelope for the westernmost extent of the potential vernal pool habitat, which again is probably the most marginal. So we've pulled those impacts out as much as we can. And I would also sort of follow with the fact that if we can, whatever we can do to preserve the mature trees that are going to remain on site will be beneficial to this as well. So, I mean, I think we've gotten this thing to the point where we've done, I think, as much as we can in discussing it with Mike. And overall, I think that, the footprint of this development is relatively small. And I think that where it's situated related to the wetland, related to where the highest quality features of the wetland are, which is in the eastern portion of the wetland, where the potential vernal pool habitat is the best and where the perennial watercourse outlets, I think the layout makes sense to me the way it is. And that's about all I have, unless anyone has any.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any questions for Mr. Davison?
I have a question, Matt. You'd mentioned that the wetland discharges or forms a water course, and I can't really figure out where that is. And does that ultimately go down to the Neck River?
When I looked at the aerials on Connecticut, so it's at the very bottom right corner of the lot. If you are on Old Schoolhouse, it actually discharges underneath Old Schoolhouse and then meanders alongside a house that is on one end of Old Schoolhouse. And it looks like it drains to Bailey Creek to me.
Okay. Okay.
Which I don't know. Well, which I guess hits. Does that hit the Necker? It looks like
I
that
think
goes-
it does ultimately get to the Neck River. Yes.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, here, Bailey Creek. Yes. Yes. It connects lower down.
Yes.
With the
And I
Necker.
believe where it connects is tidal.
Yeah.
And so this is, it's the area of the vernal pool looks like it occupies the majority of the lot or the potential vernal pool. That's based on the hydrology. So there's this sweet pepper bush transition zone that you talked about, sort of a shelf that is wetland soil, and then it drops down fairly steeply into an area that accumulates sufficient hydrology to be a potential vernal pool in it, and it's pretty substantial in size.
Yeah.
Right. And then so just wondering, like in terms of upland habitat, which so these critters need, upland habitat to do their thing. What's surrounded? I think there's some residential development off adjacent to the east. There's a development off to the west. There's sort of that sliver of uplands between the pool and the road, and then across the street there's some forest and some agricultural land. And I mean, in your eye, what might these, users be using for upland habitat?
I was trying to figure that out when I was out there, and that's the sort of the part of it that's the least clear. There's not a lot of upland forest surrounding it. There's the sliver that runs along Old Schoolhouse Road. There is a little bit of forest across the street. There was a little bit of upland inclusion within the main body of the wetland, which I just didn't bother mapping. And then I don't know what's on the other side of the vernal pool. So for me, the upland habitat is probably the limiting factor here. I suspect if we went in here in the spring, we probably would not find spotted salamander. Maybe we would find wood frog. They're just a little more tolerant of this kind of setup. But there's not a ton of upland habitat, but the quality within the pool itself, the quality of the habitat looked good enough that, you cannot ignore it when you see it for sure.
Okay. So the upland habitat here is already compromised or developed and
Yep,
not super.
that's right.
Okay. I know it's just a house, but I didn't see a lighting plan, and I know we talked about lighting before. What do we have for floodlights? I'm just concerned about light intrusion into the wetlands. Is there any indication on the plans about that?
There's nothing on the plan about that. There's no doors on the rear, so there's no building code requirements for lights. The only place there would be lights would be on the above doors on the two sides and the front. So if you'd like to add to a condition of approval, if you saw fit, the commission saw fit that there be no lights on the rear of the home, I'm sure we could, per the code, we could certainly do that.
But the patio's on the west side.
Yeah, as I said, the only potential, I think what I said was the only potential for lights would be on the ends and the front,
Okay.
two ends in the front. Yeah.
And I'm not an expert on this, but certainly my brother Eric, who's more the wildlife biologist, is there. I know there's a lot of options for sort of dark sky compliant lighting that we have used for other projects whenever we're sort of abutting a wetland. And I know Eric does promote that type of lighting, to your point, Martin.
Yeah. And you had mentioned, saving big trees to the extent possible along that retaining wall, which, I would certainly agree with. I know Mike talked a lot last meeting about not having trees overhanging the house. And, what would this look like? I mean, did we do a tree inventory? Should we survey those larger trees and really lock in on what we can realistically save so we know what we're getting into?
We didn't inventory each tree, but Mike and I did look at that very specifically when we were out there. We started with those two areas that originally were going to be filled. There weren't any mature trees within those areas. And the reason I sort of brought up the tree protection thing is because I do think it is feasible. I don't think there are any large trees right next to the retaining wall, but I do think that those trees, there are some larger trees. The site's a little bit odd in a sense that, and it gets back to the transitional zone there's actually some large mature red oaks in that transitional zone, which are in the wetland, but they're large, very healthy, mature red oaks. And their root zone is going to extend out quite a ways. I do think that they will be well outside of the development zone, but the root zones will extend probably close enough to where the retaining wall is that, if you set up some exclusion fencing, some orange construction fencing and make it clear to the contractors, this is limited disturbance, you can't go past it. I do think that those trees will survive.
Okay, so they're in that pepper bush shelf.
Yes, in that transitional area, there's some large red oaks. Yeah, I think you can even see one in like the second photo. You can see it in there. It's in the wetland.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the extent of lawn now? Is there any lawn?
Would, you mean, would there be any, Kayla?
Yeah, because you're so close to the wetland and um well, I assuming your sheet flow goes to the road, maybe you won't have fertilizer and stuff getting into wetland right there, which can fundamentally change wetlands. I just wonder where we're at on lawn area.
So can you see my screen again now?
Yep.
Or just to bring up the plan. So, the only lawn area would be, in front of the house, essentially within the building setback, this 40-foot strip right here, and then there'd be a little bit of lawn area on this end of the house. And that would be it.
What about to the east, Mike?
The what? I'm sorry, Lee?
To the east, to the east, north is up, right?
Yeah, so the east is the driveway pad.
Okay. What
Yeah.
about if you go further down? Is the lawn going?
Here,
Nope, further down.
down here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
down.
that's
the
what I
road.
meant. Yeah, that's what I meant by, so this line that I'm tracing is the building setback line, and I'm just using that for reference because it's 40 feet
Yeah.
from the stone wall. So, after they build the septic system, of course, this would be lawn
Yep.
to the right of the driveway, and then in front of the house would be lawn, and then potentially there could be lawn on this side of the house also.
Okay.
Mike, you had, this is Aaron, you had along your silt fence line, that was your limit of disturbance. Is that safe to assume where those boundary markers for a upland buffer area that would also delineate any potential for finished or manicured lawn versus natural?
Yeah, so the sediment control area, the thick dashed line is the limited disturbance, and I'll zoom in again, as I showed you, there's the mark, see the two markers? They're
Yeah.
they're on that limit of disturbance. If you follow it along, there's another one. There's not.
What about the other direction? How far do they go to the?
Oh, they go, I'll just keep tracing it. You'll see. Can you see those symbols?
I couldn't see them on my screen, but I can see them now.
Yeah, there's one there. There's another one.
Okay. Yeah.
I think it goes all the way almost to the stone wall, I think. Yeah,
Yeah. Good.
actually
Good.
past the stone wall. Goes all the way to here.
Good.
Just around where we disturbed because of the well.
Yep.
I forget how many there are, but there's quite a few.
Mike and I discussed, because one of the things I spoke with Mike about is I basically said that, I didn't think, I said, if this is approved, I would think it would be prudent that the remaining undeveloped areas be just left alone. And we had sort of talked about some type of conservation easement. We both decided it was probably unnecessary because you're always within the wetland buffer here. So someone would have to come back to the commission anyway. And that's where we thought that just these placards would sort of do the trick here.
Yeah, I mean, yes. I guess we also have on our agenda tonight, two violations where people have gone beyond and cut down trees. So it's not, I mean, it's there and that's great. But in this case, you're tucking this house in so close to a potential probable vernal pond, and there's not a lot of scope. You're not I understand the limitations, but it'll be challenging for a homeowner to not want to expand into the lawn and then maybe just cut down and deal with the consequences, which is not to say that this isn't, doing its best. And of course we can't control people, but being this close, putting a house this close to a wetland is, almost asking for, encroachment, regardless of what you put up. I mean, it's 14 to 20 feet on the back side of the house is right next to a wetland, and then you've got the septic also like right there as well, or close. I guess that's a little farther.
Well,
50.
the septic system is no closer than 50 feet.
Right.
to the
Okay. But you
wetlands.
have, right.
It's the only place we can put the septic system.
Oh, I know. I get that.
Same thing with the house. The house is, I think, I don't know if you recall, but the house is 1 foot off the front building setback line.
Yeah.
And 1 foot off the back left corner, and we, unfortunately, that's as far away as the house can get.
Other questions for either Matt or Mike?
Nope.
With the inclusion of that retaining wall, I know there's already a stone wall on site, but with that retaining wall, what am I trying to say? Stop or be problematic for critters that are trying to get to that vernal pool.
It would impede movement if there was so that area would essentially be blocked off there where the lot is. But again, it's a pretty small area. And the wall sort of wraps back around. So it would basically exclude them from the development envelope.
And do you know if that stone wall continues? Like, is it does it go, does it block the remainder of the, to the right there?
It does continue, but I would say that would not exclude critters from moving through. I don't think that stone wall is broken up enough and there's enough sort of voids in it that I would not look at that as an impediment. Certainly not for mole salamanders, and for wood frogs also. It wouldn't impede them from moving through that area.
What about spotted turtles?
Well, I don't know if there's spotted turtle here. Spotted turtle is state listed species, special concern. I did look at the NDDB and there is no NDDB. This is not within an NDDB polygon. That doesn't mean you couldn't have spotted turtles here, but there's no records that have been submitted to the state within this general area.
So no, any other questions for the applicant?
Nope.
Okay, this is a public hearing, so if the commission has no other questions, we can open it up if anybody from the public would like to speak. I'm seeing that it's very quiet.
Right, there's no one with their hand raised, Madam Chair.
It's very quiet on the attendee side. Okay, well, so for the commission, if we have no other questions for the applicant, we can, and of course, please correct me if I'm wrong, but we can close the meeting. And if you feel comfortable, I guess I wouldn't close the meeting unless you feel you have all the information that you'd like in order to make a decision. And if you do, then we should close the meeting and have that discussion.
I move we close the public hearing for application 23-49, 24 Old Schoolhouse Road.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of closing the public hearing? All right.
Aye.
All right, so the public hearing is closed. I know that we have a staff report from our wonderful staff and potential resolution. Are there any other comments or considerations people want to talk about before we can move into looking at these drafts?
I can screen share some of the facts and findings section, as this is a significant activity. The agency will need to make some findings on the record here. Staff, we did draft some initial comments for you. I know there was further discussion by the applicant and the agents and agency members, which could potentially be additional conditions. One was the demarking the limit of disturbance and potentially using orange construction fencing around a mature tree, taking note of drip lines to help protect those trees during construction activities. And then the second additional condition could be that all exterior lighting shall be full cutoff, night sky friendly.
Okay, yeah, so if you want to
Those
share
were
that,
just notes that I
Right.
found. Okay, is that big enough? Can you see that?
Yep,
I can zoom. Is that better?
that's better.
Okay, so specifically for facts, this is just documenting when the application was received that the agency deemed it a significant activity, that you did walk the site during a regularly scheduled walk meeting on August 19th, 2023. Public hearing commenced on September 11th, was continued to October 2nd, and was further continued to this evening after receiving written extension from the applicant. And again, you've closed the public hearing this evening and have begun deliberations. Findings. But is it easier if I read them out loud, or do you prefer to read them to yourselves?
I think we can read them ourselves.
Thank you.
I already have read them. and I like-
Okay,
they're-
good.
They're very good, very good.
Do we have discussion after somebody makes a motion, or can we have discussion at this point?
so we can have discussion now. We
Sure,
make
you
a
can
motion,
deliberate now. Mhm.
and then we can discuss up until the point where we vote.
Yeah, I'm just recalling the commission had a lot of concerns given the proximity of the house, to the wetlands at the last meeting. And, it's good to have the details of the wetland report. It looks as though it appears as though the wetland is not only substantial, but it's a fairly high quality wetland. And although we keep saying that, we've moved the house as far away from the critical wetland core, there's really not much upland there anyway. And everyone's saying we've done the best we can do with the lot that we have and the amount of wetlands that are there and small house, and we're shrinking it and putting it in the corner, and it's still right next to the wetland, and it still has the risk of having a future owner encroach into that wetland, certainly onto that, pepper bush shelf where it's sort of transitional and not as obvious as the steep slopes that go down into the area that accumulates hydrology. It's just, it's very, very close to the wetlands. And I'm not feeling that the additional information has allayed the concerns that I have for the proximity of the house is to the wetlands. And I just figured I'd come out and say all that.
Okay.
I think Martin and Kayla, you both brought up that it kind of sets the future owner up for an issue, be it accidental even. So that's a little concerning. I don't want to see somebody in 6, months after the house is purchased with an accidental violation, or, what have you. So that's a little concerning on my end.
Right. I think, right. And unfortunately, actually, fortunately, I mean, people have free agency. I guess my concerns are, well, that is a concern, but if we think of just, it's a significant activity, the house itself is close to the wetland. My particular concern are, as as Matt Davison noted, there's it is a high quality wetland. Those trees will be important to it. And you know, there's definitely gonna, you know, probably undoubtedly going to be impact to some of the root zone, and it's cutting off, you know, we don't know, it's not the right time of year to figure out what's living there, but as Anna pointed out, it also is well, that retaining wall is cutting off some migration pattern, maybe. I mean, things will go around, but it's close. It's close with, and with all the parts that go along with having development that close to a wetland. Other thoughts from Joe? We've got Joe, Tom, and Lee.
I remember an application, yep, different application, but when I was looking at the site plan a few days ago, I couldn't help but remember a property at the corner of Hunter's Trail and Milestone where there was a lot of record and there was a little sliver of dry land to the front, and there was a house proposal and a septic system, and the commission walked away very uncomfortable. So I'm
That
gonna
one got
stay.
denied.
Yes, yes, it did. I didn't want to say that, but I'm gonna stay consistent with my thoughts after that decision, looking at this property being the very same format and look, that I think this property should stay undisturbed.
Well, okay. Lee and Tom, I guess we're kind of polling, but I think it's good to get concerns out. And I think, you know, as you do, you know, we have to, you know, this needs to be based on, you know, impacts to the wetland. So any other, you don't have, Lee and Tom, you don't have to say anything, or if you want.
No, I think not at the last meeting, probably the meeting before. I think I mentioned that I live on a lot that's very similar to this, and while I don't have the detailed wetland education that you, Kayla and Anna and Martin have, I just know what's happened on my property, and the wetlands are doing fine. I think the applicant's gone to extraordinary measures to satisfy us. And Matt Davidson didn't say anything that could concern me, but again, you guys may have more technical and educational experience in these things. But if somebody made a motion to approve this, I would vote for it.
Bless you.
Just my fall cough forever.
I have one too. Okay. Well,
One thought that I had just for concerns as far as future identification of the designated wetland buffer area, although it's not an easement, one mechanism that I've seen used before through approvals would be to have the conditions of the inland wetlands permit placed on the map, and that could be filed on the land records, so that when someone is searching the property, there's, you know, or looking to purchase the property, there's evidence that's not just associated with a permit on file in the land use office, but there's something that is searchable on the land records. Just as the subdivision map for this property is filed, you know, has been filed on the land records and show the wetland delineation. This could be another tool that, I mean, as you know, we can't predict what any future owner would do on any property. but I think yeah, the tools that we have used in the past are delineating wetlands, delineating, upland review area or buffer area. Typically, I've recommended every 50 feet. In this particular case, the applicant suggested every 30 feet along the wetland or along that silt fence boundary. But I just thought I'd throw that out as another tool that might, I don't know if that's preferable, but something that would be on the land records, be even more visible.
I think yes, and that can be helpful. I think what at least part of my concern is not just even encroachment, it's the fact of, building that close to the wetland, right? I mean, there's going to be disturbance, there's probably going to be trees, some of those mature trees, may not make it. We can't predict that. The runoff, presumably it will go towards the front, but that there's a lot of associated impacts even without any encroachment that would happen just being that close. Other but it is nice to have that as a tool in the toolbox, definitely, because we have, it is something that I think would be really helpful on a lot of our applications, is to have that on the land record so that it's there and there aren't any mistakes in activities.
I guess my other thought is that if the agency is looking into a different direction with your motion and not, as opposed to, I've proposed or drafted, I should say, not proposed, a draft resolution for approval. And if the agency is looking to go in a different direction, it would be one, to provide some guidance to staff along those lines, but then it would be advised to give us some of these findings where you're associating that impact, or that a feasible and prudent alternative exists other than what has come before you, and that after that, then we table further deliberations to your next meeting so that staff can work to draft a resolution and to make sure that would be consistent with all of our legal parameters, I should say.
Yes, and I agree. I think yes, I think if that's the direction, and we haven't done a total poll, I would say that it's at least 50-50 now based on discussion. So I think,
yeah, and Madam Chair, if I may, that needs to be based off of evidence that has been provided in testimony during the public hearing.
I understand that, and I think I have mentioned a couple of those already, and as have Joe and Martin, and I'm sure they would be happy, and Anna, to if we need to go into detail. I'm sure that's possible. I guess I think that it seems to me that we may want to at least table this for now, since it is a rare case where we are not all in agreement. And I think we should just regroup and revisit what a resolution looks like that's not in a positive direction.
Well, okay, so I guess to elaborate on that, then yes, I would ask that agency members be a little more specific this evening prior to tabling deliberation so that I can
So
make sure I'm
why don't we
understanding.
why don't we pull up the significant activity, section 7.6, because this is a significant activity, despite the fact that it was deemed that, and they've taken away the filling the wetlands, which is great, but the house is still 14 feet away with retaining wall.
Okay,
away from the wetlands.
I'll pull that up.
Lee, can you hear us? Yes? No? He said he couldn't hear us. Let's see.
We can hear you, Lee.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, you're back.
Okay. So 7.6 is additional information that the commission would need, and then it's section 10.
Okay.
That is your considerations so
I can't
the
see section.
criteria for decision, is that what you were, I can screen share. I just want to make sure I have the right section.
Well, I guess, Erin, you're
Vanilla.
asking us for, that you're saying to us that we're gonna have, that right now, we need to go through and give you specifics based on our regulations.
Some guidance, yes.
Okay.
For to clarify your reasons, and just so that I can start formulating that into language.
Okay.
I mean,
I think every one of us has said something already, so I'm not sure what else you're looking for, but if it's helpful to bring up section 10, and
okay,
I don't know. I mean, I don't have section 10 right at my fingertips.
Okay, so let's. Okay, can you see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so criteria for decisions. So
we're taking into account the action on the capacity of the inland wetlands and watercourses to support fish and wildlife, to prevent flooding, to supply and protect surface and groundwaters, to control sediment. At least some of those were mentioned as significant functions and values identified by the applicant's environmental consultant, right? The applicant's purpose, the feasible and prudent alternatives, I would say that they have explored to the best of their ability what they can. This is a very challenging lot, and it has a lot of wetland. And so I don't have, outside of not building, I don't see what else they can do. I mean, you could make maybe a smaller house, I suppose, and pull it away, but then you're getting into, which is not our purview, economics and cost benefit analyses. But so that, so I think we've explored that. The relationship between short-term and long-term impacts. I actually think, maybe the short-term impacts are mitigated with sediment, but I think the long-term impacts, as also indicated by Matt Davison, are, uncertain and maybe not significant, but definite. We don't know that. There's definitely a potential, and that was raised in the report as well. And the applicant's consultant also made a point of saying that normally for potential vernal pools, and given that there's water in there now, it probably is, that there's 100-foot envelope that it's recommended not be developed. And despite the fact that they are in the very corner of that envelope, they are still within that corner. And then So irreversible and irretrievable loss, they're not filling, which is great. There is septic nearby, which we know will leak. And in this forested wetland like this, that has the potential to change the food web for the aquatic organisms and also change it to an algal dominated environment. So those, and I'm happy for Anna, Martin, Joe to also go through these, but those are just, if we step through these, those are just some thoughts that are also based on what we heard tonight.
I think
Go ahead, Anna.
I think also just for specificity for 10.2a, when we're talking about controlling pollution, just like the fertilizers and the chemicals that'll be used in the lawns, and also the same section supporting fish and wildlife that I think could hinder, critters getting to the vernal pool with that retaining wall there. Even, there is a existing stone wall that may or may not allow critters. That retaining wall will definitely hinder them more significantly.
Yeah, I was just going to go back to the feasible and prudent alternatives, and I think that they have done their best to find the most feasible and prudent alternative given the site that they're working with. And I think Matt Davison said, basically, I think I might be quoting that we've done the best that we could with this thing. And I think that they've done the best they could with this thing. And the lot itself is just very, very restrictive given the area of wetlands versus the area of uplands. And now adding the high functionality or potential functionality of that wetland, I think makes it even more critical to ensure that wetland remain intact. And I think that the development would be a irreversible and irretrievable loss of wetland functions and values, given the proximity of the development to the wetlands and the functions and values of the wetlands.
Is that the type of information that you need, Aaron? Or Maria?
I'm sorry, I'm talking and I'm muted. I apologize.
That's okay. I thought, did I say that out loud?
It's hard not having my camera work. I can't see myself. I'm sorry. Yes, it is important to put reasons, into your deliberations and discussion, and so that I can, try to put these into findings for you. So that's, yes, and that's exactly what I was looking for, some more details from you. Thank you.
So I'll just put my reason out there. So I do like what Anna and Martin said, and I'm just going to focus on the prudent alternatives. And the way I see the site plan, although I do like the retaining wall being better than filling, I just see 100% of the dry buildable area still being disturbed. I mean, you got the lawn to the east. It's not lawn now. At the driveway, the house, the septic area. I don't know if there was a reserve area that is potential disturbance down the road. Then you got the lawn to the west. You got the excavation for the wall. I just feel that there's just no alternative except for 100% disturbance, and I'm uncomfortable with that.
Any other additional comments? If not, then you can, the agency does have 35 days to deliberate and take action, which would bring you right to your December meeting. So no additional extensions are required
Okay.
for that.
Do we need to do anything or just table this? Is there a motion? Do we need to do a motion to table this to the December 4th meeting?
Sure, if you're finished, yep, just table deliberations to the next meeting. That's fine. A motion, I'm sorry.
Does anybody, before we do that, does anybody have anything else they'd like to add?
I am curious. I'm looking at section 10.6 in the regulations, and it says we shall not deny or condition an application in an area outside of wetlands or water courses on a basis of an impact or effect on aquatic plants or animal life unless such activity will impact or affect the physical characteristics of wetlands and water courses. I just want to make sure I'm understanding that correct and that we're not kind of stepping on our own toes with that one. I'm not entirely sure what that's saying.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Well, that's consistent with the statute. So the ability to consider area, I should say, impacts on aquatic plant or animal life outside the actual inland wetland or water course can only be done unless the particular activity will impact the physical characteristics of the wetland or water course. So that's where you would make a determination whether or not the proposed activity will have a direct impact on the physical characteristics of the wetland or water course, the adjacent wetland or water course. And then that is when you take into consideration the aquatic plant or animal life. So I guess, are you referring specifically to your comments regarding the retaining wall, Anna?
Yeah, no, I think just hearing you talk about it kind of answered my own question. Keyword is outside wetlands or water courses. So I think we're in the clear. I just wanted to make sure we're not
I think
stepping on our toes.
I think I can help there because I've been an agent for wetland commissions in other towns, and I've heard attorneys speak and other commissioners, very smart ones, and I've heard conservation commissions speak, and it's often said that a wetlands commission, our goal is to protect the habitat and the wetlands. We don't protect the animals or the critters. So when we condition something or say something's denied, our reasons can't be because we fear that the spotted turtles will be forced to move somewhere. So we can't have our reasons be animal related. We can only focus on we fear that the habitat of the spotted turtle might become toxic. So it's just, I think it's like a wording and focus.
Yeah, and
Okay.
it's not a particular animal, but but in general, we are focused on habitat and impacts to habitat.
Mhm.
And I suppose if it was an NDDB, that's different, but then DEEP comes in and says things.
No, that helps. Joe, that clarified it. Thank you.
And of course, if the agency has any questions that you'd like our land use council to provide you with an explanation, I'm happy to get that for you as well. If you feel that we didn't quite grasp what you were looking, or touch upon what you're looking for.
It sounded to me like the red oaks that are in that sweet pepper bush shelf just behind the house extended over the retaining wall and perhaps into the backyard or near the house. and therefore so would their root systems.
I think what
And
he said is that the drip line would, I don't
yeah,
know the trees themselves, but the canopy, the drip line,
yeah,
certainly the root zone.
yeah.
It's close.
The drip line represents the root zone typically, and I think that the drip line of those trees extends over that retaining wall. It seems to me that um, those trees could be affected by the construction. Those trees are shading that sweet pepper bush shelf, and as such, I think that the proposed project could have a physical effect on the wetlands.
Um, okay. Are there, so Aaron, are you feel, and Maria, do you feel like that is sufficient information to construct a draft resolution?
Yes, I've taken
Yeah.
notes on all of your comments. Thank you.
Okay. Would someone like to make a motion?
I can make a motion to table this to the next meeting.
And
I'll
a second?
second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? This is your kind of the last chance for further discussion before we
So
table.
to echo Aaron's comment, I think the motion is to continue the deliberation, not table.
I
Okay.
think we're
It's
tabling our,
fine. It's not a hearing.
Yeah, it's not a hearing, so I think we can say table. Any other comments? Okay, all in favor of tabling / continuing application 23-49 24 Old Schoolhouse Road to December 4th, 2023. Raise your hand, say aye.
I,
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, and thank you to Mike and Matt for the work you did on this. I know it was a lot.
Okay.
Okay. So on to, I guess we still, Mike is
Yes, Mike Ott is the engineer of record for
Right.
48 A and B Wall Street. And attorney Chris McKeon is coming over to join him for this presentation.
So for those of us, that was me and Tom, I think, who were on the site walk last month. This is one of our site walks, and hopefully other members had a chance to drive by, maybe take a peek.
I did. Yep.
Okay, great. Okay, welcome, Mr. McKeon.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Chris McKeon. I represent the applicant for this project, and I really am just answering the call, but I'm going to turn it directly over to Mike Ott to explain to you the project we have and the engineering work he's done, and why it is we're here before the Wetlands Agency. So, Mike, take it away.
Okay. Thanks, Chris. Good evening. Again, for the record, I'm Mike Ott. I'm a licensed professional engineer and land surveyor with Summerhill Civil Engineers and Land Surveyors here in Madison. Can the commission see my screen?
Yes.
So this is 48A, two parcels, 48A and 48B Wall Street. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. It's the lot just to the south of Moxie. There's a very large oak tree out at the street, and then there's a pretty expansive lawn area. The ground surface drops down from the street about 6 feet or so. There's a big change in the topography, and I'm sure you remember the tents that have been set up in that low point by the previous owner at times during the summer. And then At the rear of the first parcel, there's a small single-family home. And
Excuse me, Mike, your pages aren't progressing. We're still on the cover sheet.
oh, I'm sorry. Let me stop sharing. Let me so I'll stop sharing in a second. So um I'll show you a map in a second, but at the rear of the first parcel is a very small parcel with another single family home on it. So the two members of the commission that went on the site walk a couple Saturdays ago saw the two small single family homes. Let me try to do this again. Okay. Do you see a change in the plan sheet now, Eric?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So sorry about that. So Wall Street is on the left. Um Moxie to the top of the lot here where my cursor is moving. This much larger parcel that I'm tracing is 48A Wall Street, and the small one is 48B. And these are the two single family homes that I was talking about. There are no inland wetlands on the parcel or on the adjoining parcels to the north or to the south, but there is a wetland on the adjoining parcel to the east, which is Davis Realty. This is the Clippership Row Apartments parcel that goes out to Route 1 to the southeast. So the 100-foot upland review area is drawn. This dashed line is 100 feet from this wetland that's on the Davis Realty property to the east. Let me see if I can switch pages without having to stop again. Did the commission see a change in the page?
Yeah.
Yes.
We have no direct impacts proposed to the inland wetland, including there's no stormwater discharge to the inland wetland. The activity, this is that dark dashed line again that you saw on the other sheet, is the 100 limit of the 100-foot upland review area. So the activities within the 100-foot upland review area are the removal of this house on the parcel with a street address of 48B, and the construction of a subsurface stormwater detention and infiltration system, a portion of the parking lot. This is a concrete pad for a waste and recycling receptacles area. This is a concrete pad for a generator. And then there is a slope today here along the rear of the property. We're regrading that slope. So those are the activities within 100 feet of the wetland. Again, no direct wetland impacts, no stormwater discharge. The stormwater goes to the west in the opposite direction. We have different sheet. Well, actually on this sheet, because we're regrading the slope, we have erosion control blanket proposed, this hatched area. On the slope is all erosion control blanket to be installed. On the site preparation plan, prior to the start of construction, we have this thick dashed line is sedimentation control barrier along the southerly property line and along the easterly property line at the toe of the slope to prevent sediment from leaving the property and heading towards the inland wetland. I think, let me switch sheets again one more time. I think that's really it in a nutshell. So again, no direct wetland impacts, no stormwater discharge to the wetland, and the activities are a stormwater infiltration system below the parking area itself, portion of the parking area, and the concrete pads for the generator, for a generator, and waste and receptacle area enclosure. And that's the extent of the activities. Does the agency have any questions at this point?
I do, Mike. So you've got a stormwater infiltration system down at the east end of the site
Yes.
that has, what's the storage capacity of that? What year storm will that treat and engage? And are there swirl type separators? What's the treatment train for the stormwater? That's a two-part question.
So the stormwater infiltration system is designed to temporarily store and allow for the infiltration of the water quality volume that's computed for the site based on its impervious surface area. And less frequent, larger depth rainfall events will leave the system, go into an outlet control structure, and go into a pump and wet well system that pumps stormwater back up to Wall Street. That's why there's no stormwater discharge to the wetland. So our site again is our site is a bathtub basically. Our site is the lowest point on Wall Street. So we are collecting stormwater, treating, and then discharging it to the west back to the municipal stormwater system within Wall Street.
So it's going back into the street ultimately. That's the overflow.
It's going up to the municipal storm sewer system in Wall Street. Yes.
After it goes into the larger system in the east side. When that tops out, we pump it up to Wall Street.
Yes, it gets pumped up to Wall Street. Yeah.
But there is some infiltration capacity to those.
The subsurface stormwater system is sized to as required to temporarily store and then infiltrate the water quality volume.
Okay. Is it new water quality volume for the new standards that just came out?
No, those don't come into effect, I think, until the spring. No, it's not. It's for the current.
A lot of people are using those already. I think it's increased by like a third for the water quality volume.
Yeah. I think we've had several applicants who aren't updated yet, aren't updating until they need to. I think we've had some other applications who aren't doing that yet.
Yeah. And yeah, Mike, is there a reason why you didn't upgrade to the future standards in the spring? Would that be difficult for this project to manage?
It would be impossible for this site to manage.
Okay. And so the infiltration capacity, is there any treatment before that infiltration?
Yes, there's a hydrodynamic separator prior to the infiltration system.
Okay. Okay, good. Thank you. Yeah, I'm very familiar with this site. I live about 200 feet from here.
Other questions for the applicant? I don't have any.
The bottom of those infiltrators, the elevation, how does that relate to the elevation of that wetland line?
The bottom of the infiltration system is at elevation 90, which is 3 feet above the groundwater surface that we've been monitoring. The wetland elevation is approximately 88 at the wetland boundary.
Okay. And the soils there are pretty sandy, like throughout that entire area, right? I imagine you've got rapid infiltration.
They're very sandy. Yeah.
Yeah, very, very sandy. And who located that offsite wetland?
Rich Snarsky.
Who located the boundary for the offsite wetland? Was that
Rich Snarsky?
Okay, and that was for this project. You got permission to go on the adjacent property owner's property and
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Other other questions? No?
No.
Okay.
Do we know what's going in here?
I can answer that one.
Okay.
We were before the zoning board of appeals to and received a variance for an office building for a town resident is the owner. He currently operates a financial services business in rented space on Post Road in the Aerodome building, and this is going to be the new headquarters of his local business. 30 or so employees, foot traffic for Wall Street. Obviously, all the development geared toward the Wall Street frontage. There's design standards and other things in place for Wall Street to be walkable, which the architects and Mike have worked with. It is no small task to negotiate the downtown district zoning regulations, the downtown village district design criteria, and a site like this, which, as you can see, is very narrow and long with very little frontage on the street. So this part of Mike's work, although it was a lot of work, is the tip of the iceberg in terms of the work that was required to end up with the project. But we have a very committed applicant who's wanting to house his business in the town where he lives. I think it's a great project for the town as well. I said the same thing to the zoning board of appeals, so I'm not saying anything different to you all.
Sure. And what's the square footage of the proposed building compared to the square footage of the two houses that are there now?
The proposed building is approximately 100 by 34.
Okay.
And the two buildings are maybe 2,500 square feet total.
Okay.
In total.
Sure. Okay.
As far as impacts to the wetland, are there other questions for that?
I don't have any.
My only concern would be that, we've got infiltration of stormwater from the site, going down into rapidly permeable soils that, aren't that far from an adjacent wetland. We know that it's going to end up there, but the site development isn't that large. They've got stormwater treatment with a storm scepter, and, they've managed to capture the overflow. So, I feel comfortable with the design.
Okay. Well, we have, as usual, our staff has drafted, they drafted a staff report. But I think we've kind of covered a lot of that. The highlights, Mike has gone through we've got the two parcels. We walked the site. It was delineated by Rich Snarsky with permission from the adjacent landowner. So I will I guess maybe Aaron, Mike, if you don't mind not sharing or stop sharing, and if I can share it actually.
Are you looking for the resolution?
Yeah, I've got it. I can.
Okay, I have it too if you.
I think this is it. Is this it?
Yes.
Okay. Except I can't see it for some reason. I mean, I can. I just have lots up. All right, so this is our draft resolution. It has our standard language for this. If our agency members could take a look, and if someone wants to propose a motion, we can propose a motion, and then we have a second, and then we can have a chance to discuss more if we need to add any conditions, and then we can vote.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve application 23-59 for 48A and 48B Wall Street in accordance with the draft resolution prepared by staff. I don't have any additional conditions that I would add on to that resolution.
Okay, is there a second for Martin's motion?
Second.
Excellent, we have a second. Does anybody else have any comments? Conditions? Okay, I don't either. All in favor of the resolution as drafted and present on the screen, raise your hand, say aye.
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 Excellent. Okay. You are approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Nice job.
Take care.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right. So our next application is 23-56, 122 Summer Hill Road. It's a regulated activity permit for construction of a pool and patio and associated fence and plantings within the 100-foot upland review area. This is intertwined with a violation lower down for the same address. So yeah, how do
Yes.
we handle
So,
this?
actually,
We can go out of order.
we could discuss them together as, you know, it's really just a placeholder, the next item on the agenda, to let you know that the application for 454 Horse Pond has been withdrawn. And so next in line is the violation discussion for this. So you're welcome to open the agenda and kind of handle them together, because I think you're right, Madam Chair, that they should be discussed together, and which is why Maria combined her staff reports to be all inclusive. I basically address the clearings beyond the 100-foot upland review area, or into the 100-foot upland review area, and then the new proposal for the pool. So
Yeah.
I don't know, did everybody have a chance to read the staff report? We did share it with the applicant as well. If not, we can go through that first and kind of recap how we got to where we are.
And not everybody was on the walk, so I don't know who else went out after.
No,
I went out to, I drove by it today.
Okay.
I walked it over the weekend.
Good. So basically, there were two corrective actions that were required that the commission upheld in the enforcement order. And as Maria inspected, they were successfully completed. And so really, at this point, you've got seeded and hayed area that was disturbed. It is the intent of the applicant to further landscape that. Some of the area, as you've seen, is sodded and stabilized. And then I think the the sod area was not around where the actual pool is proposed to go. And so really, I guess the question is whether or not one, you're comfortable with just looking at a regulated activity permit for a pool within an upland review area. And if you're looking for any type of permanent delineation between that vegetated slope and the manicured lawn area, some type of a buffer. So we've kind of drafted resolutions for you regarding the corrective action, both ways. If you're satisfied that they've met the conditions of the enforcement order, have stabilized the area, seeded and hayed that, and that's sufficient for you, then you can look at the regulated activity permit and what's proposed with that. If you think, I guess our recommendation in talking through this is if you would like to see some type of buffer in between the pool and the pool area and lawn area and that wooded slope, it would be our recommendation to include that as a corrective action, because a regulated activity for the pool may or may not happen, really. They're indicating that they want to, but in the long term, something could happen and the pool never goes in. But with a corrective action, at least you would order the property owner to install that buffer, regardless of whether or not a pool ever comes in, because the disturbance has already taken place. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I think my opinion is we should decide how we feel about the violation without thinking about a pool, because it's stabilized, but it was cleared pretty much up until that slope, which is pretty steep down to Hammonasset, and in cases where we have these types of violations, we tend to have more than just stop and stabilize, right? We tend to have, that there's a buffer or there's something. But I would open that up for discussion, but I think we should deal with the violation. I like the idea that staff report had on a vegetated buffer. I think given the location of this property being upslope and of the Hammonasset and associated wetlands and watercourses, that's important. But that's just me. So, but I would open it up and say, to see what other agency members think.
Yeah, I would agree with that sentiment, and it's certainly consistent with what we've suggested in the past. It's definitely, looks very open on the top of that slope looking down, to the river. So there's not much of a visual buffer between the development and then the slope and the wetlands down below. I think the slope itself and the distance to the wetlands is a pretty good measure of protection. I think it's a pretty well, protected buffer, just given the distance, and the slope actually adds to the sort of separation between the developed area and the river itself. But in looking at it, I did get the sense that it felt open and exposed, and I think it would be nice to get some shrubs or some evergreen type shrubs that can provide at least a visual buffer between the developed area and the top of that slope and the wetlands down below. I think it's a good suggestion to do something like that. Maybe come back with some kind of a landscape plan, developed by a wetland scientist or a biologist that would be consistent with, native vegetation in that area, and something that would further offer, some visual buffering.
Other comments or suggestions, thoughts from agency members?
As far as the vegetation, I know that it was cleared, and it is. I was on the site walk, and it is open and cleared. And like you said, the slope is where it does drop off, it does offer protection to it. And I know that they were planning on sodding all that to stabilize the ground that was there, or the dirt that was there.
you're talking additional shrubbery or evergreens up at the slope that you're talking about? I mean, is the main thing to stabilize the soil at the back?
It was also to have native shrubs and plantings and not have lawn all the way up to the slope area. And this is and this is part of the draft resolution
Yeah.
from staff that one of our options is to include a 5 foot deep row of native shrubs and plantings, and to have a permanent delineation between the maintained lawn and vegetated slope within the upland review.
Right.
I think from a staff perspective, it also served as a physical demarcation. It was a landscaped area, but it was still something that was clear where the lawn didn't just kind of meet the woodland, the wood line, and that it would deter, I guess, further encroachment that way, or dumping things of that nature.
Yeah, Chuck Mandel here. I'm sorry. I just want to jump in real quick. In regards to a physical protection, it is a pool. There will be fence, so that's a
We're not
pretty
talking
good
about
physical.
this isn't the pool.
Oh, okay. Yep. Got it.
Sorry.
Got it.
We're not
Okay.
there yet.
So
Almost.
yeah, that's okay. But there will be a fence along that area for physical. So let's talk about physical protection. So there will be a physical barrier along that top of that slope.
You're putting a fence at the edge of the slope, or that's your proposal?
Correct.
Okay. So I think, yeah, so this is different. So this is
A lot, right?
this is proposing a corrective action for the violation without looking at the pool application.
Okay. Just
So-
didn't want the commission to waste their time. I get it, but the next application mitigates a lot of the things that you're talking about right now.
Well, having a fence with lawn up into the line is actually not what we're saying here. And so
No, I get that. Okay, I'll let you finish your discussion.
of course we have to vote on that, but that's so the idea is that there would be 5 feet of vegetated planting and some kind of physical buffer. The draft resolution has boulders or rocks that exist, but it would not be lawn up until that slope. It would be a 5 foot native planting done by a planting plan submitted to the agency's agent is what is proposed. And so that's what we are discussing as with respect to that particular area. Are there other thoughts from the agency members?
Can you pull up the draft,
Yep.
staff? I'm having computer problems. I can't get to it.
Oh, Aaron, you did it faster than I did. So what they, we have two options. We can just say, fine, they stabilize it, or what we're discussing is the second option, is a delineation between the maintained lawn and the vegetated slope. So this would be a band of vegetation without going up exactly to the slope with lawn.
Is this resolution asking, so they're basically going to work with Aaron and Maria then on the specifics of this. Is that what
Well, I assume there would be some kind of, what we typically have in these types of cases for violations, and then the kind of the restorative work is, the applicant submits, a planting plan.
Yeah, they would submit a planting plan to us.
Yeah, and that would get reviewed to see to make sure that it's in line with what the intent of the resolution is. So that's separating out this from the pool application. This is dealing with
Yeah, I get it.
what happened first.
I get it.
But as far as I know we want the plantings and the shrubbery or whatever with it for the 5 feet, but you also said something about physical, which would be, you said either a fence or boulders or something to delineate that to keep.
No, not necessarily, Tom. That's basically, there are some areas that there are natural boulders or rocks already there.
Right.
So there's no, those serve as a physical demarcation as it is. So there wouldn't be a need to go beyond that in that particular area, but incorporate those boulders or rocks into the planting plan.
Sure, okay.
One thing to keep in mind is that on this particular property, the inland wetland boundary runs along two sides of the property and not just along the rear property line.
Right.
So that's intended to run along that entire
right
view area.
Yeah.
Right. This would be a way to be a reminder that
And we don't want to want to try to discourage.
yeah, we don't want to be back here with another violation, that this is protected area. And so a planting with some kind of delineation of that planting is, I think, the intent behind this draft. Okay. Are there other discussion or comment or thoughts? And we are just discussing this. Obviously, we will vote. And so if you're in favor of, if someone is in favor of just saying, they stabilized it, that's fine, then you should say. I know we've been focusing on the second resolution. Okay. It's pretty quiet.
Are we ready to make a motion here for application 23-56, 122 Summer Hill Road?
Yes, please.
And I would make a motion that we make a motion that's consistent with the resolution drafted by staff, and that we wait to see a planting plan by the applicant at some point in the future. Does that make sense?
Well, so we have a motion and we can modify. Well, you should specify, we've got 2 draft resolutions. The second one?
Or 2.
We have 2, one for 122 and one for 124.
No, so 2 options before you. So just this top section here, Martin. The first blurb, this section would be that the stabilization is sufficient and no further action is required as part of the violation. And then the second section is the language that would require a 5-foot vegetated buffer.
Oh, okay. I don't know why I'm not seeing that on what I have. So I would make a motion that we provide for the second choice, where we include a 5-foot row of native shrubs and plantings. One, that the area has been stabilized and it has been it's in good shape. There's no erosion happening there. It looks good. And further, we would look to add a row of native shrubs along that area that was disturbed.
Is there a second?
Second.
Right? Um, any discussion?
I have a question for the agency.
Yes.
Would you like to put a deadline
Oh.
on the installation of these plantings?
When, and does it have to come before us again, or are we comfortable having Aaron and Maria take care of it?
I don't know if does it have to come before us? Do you want us?
I don't think it needs to come before us, but I just think it needs to be clear.
Okay, well, to Aaron's point, it's November 6th. We're kind of, I mean, we've had a mild fall. I'm not sure if we're in planting season. And I don't know what time frame you were thinking, Aaron. I mean, I think we have maybe a week or two left of decent planting. Someone else can correct me. I mean, if the weather holds, but otherwise we're looking at spring.
Yeah, I would give them till the end of spring of next year.
So
Or
like,
as time permits. Yeah.
okay, so like May 2024.
Yeah, end of May. I think that sounds good. Give them plenty of time to work with staff and take care of it.
Aaron and Maria, does that sound reasonable? Or-
Yes, I mean, you know, at this late in the season, you're right, you know, availability and the length of this buffer area, it may take some coordination to get the right plantings, you know. And so that might be better done in the spring. So that's fine. We can add end of May 31st, 2024 as a deadline.
Yes. I guess since we're in this,
Maybe
go ahead.
maybe the submission of the plan, the planting plan should come in within 30
First.
days.
Yeah, I think the plan, yeah, so what I was gonna say is I think the planning plan should come in before, and we're in the discussion phase, so I also think, you know, what we typically do on these as well is ask for a survival rate, a 3-year survival rate, right? 80%, 70%, 75, I think we do 80% survival of the plantings and have it monitor, you know, is a yearly check-in. I think
Yeah.
that is kind of our standard wording that we've done for these types of
How many years?
so
Three.
we've usually
Yeah.
done so 3
Says
and
10, but
pardon.
I said, no.
Oh, sorry. So usually we do 3. I think we ask for 80% survival rate and replacement if things die. I imagine they will probably do well in this area, depending on what's planted. But that's the typical language that we've used in these instances.
And you wanted an annual report on those? Or just 80% at the end?
I think,
I'd recommend an annual report.
yeah, I think we
Yeah.
typically asking for an annual report. You don't want to get caught at the end. And 3 years is usually a decent enough time for things to become established.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the deadline that for the submission of the planting plan?
Well, you just suggested 30 days. I think that's fine if you think
I'm
if
comfortable with that.
seems reasonable, because that way, if there is a weather break, you know, I don't know what our winter's going to be like. They could start sooner rather than later, and just have it done by the end of May.
Okay.
So we are in our discussion with clear amendments to the motion. Are there any other pieces of information we'd like to add before we vote on this amended resolution?
I don't have any.
I'm good.
Aaron or Maria, are we okay? Are we missing anything?
I got it.
Nope, I think we're good.
Okay, all in favor of this motion as amended, raise your hand, say aye.
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 So now we can move on to the pool. And we have Mr. Mandel to talk about this application, which is, I'm gonna find it. Oh, I lost it.
Chuck, can you screen share or are you looking for us to pull it up?
Oh, Aaron, you know me.
I was afraid of that.
Yep, I figured.
Um,
All right, so it's application for the pool, it's application 23-56 122 Summerhill Road.
I'll wait for Aaron to.
I just closed it.
That's
Hold on.
okay. So I imagine some of you went out and were out in the field and saw the site. It's the pool itself is approximately about 88 feet away from the inland wetland boundary. It is a very steep slope towards the back, but the actual area of construction or where we're going to be proposing is actually fairly flat. There's really the only proposed grading will be removal of the material from the pool itself. At the bottom of the wetlands, about 10 feet off the wetland flags, that was done by Bob Russo. This is a previously approved 3-lot subdivision. There's a small intermittent stream about 10 feet beyond the wetlands. And then the actual river itself is probably another 100 feet away. I would imagine if you stood at the top of the bank, you could see the river itself. What we're proposing is along that dark dashed line along the back where the green is. That's where the existing silt fence is, and the owner is proposing to fence that in for pool for safety. And in addition, there'll be about a 6-foot patio around the pool of pavers, and the rest was going to be lawn right now. And the closest point of the wetlands from the top of the slope is about 51 feet away from the actual wetlands. It's very stable right now. It's vegetated. The slope is well vegetated. There's no runoff. And like I said earlier, with the fence, it will be that's the physical barrier that will be protecting anyone from going beyond that area of the slopes.
Questions from agency members?
Yeah, so the fence, what type of fence do you think will be going in there? And are you talking about the fence would be going right at the top of the slope?
Correct. Martin, yeah, it's that red line exactly where you see the silt fence is a couple of feet off would be the fencing itself.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure what type.
Okay, that would be on the wetland side of the proposed shrub plantings.
Right, that's what he's proposing, which is different from what we, I think.
So it wouldn't be lawn up to the fence. There's going to be a line of the proposed shrub.
Correct. We'll have a buffer of plantings along the fence, inside the fence.
Sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think, along with what we were just speaking about, obviously this will be different because it'll be 5 feet in, will be vegetated. There will be that strip of vegetated buffer according to the planting plan. And I think the fence it is not actually part of that, right? Because it's behind. You're putting the fence behind what we have just said is a line of vegetation that we want to demarcate kind of a no-go zone, I guess, or no encroachment zone. So, you know, I guess it's fine to have the fence, but then what would you propose? You know, how does that keep our 5 foot buffer from not being kind of mowed, you know, encroached?
Well, yeah,
upon?
like I said, we can put we can put that buffer on the backside of the fence, in between the wetlands and the fence, either one. It's the
That would
commission.
be,
Yeah.
that's what I was gonna
Okay.
suggest is
Yeah.
move the fence in 5 feet, add your
Okay.
wetland buffer beyond that. It
Okay.
just slightly reduces the lawn area and creates that native buffer on the wetland side of the fence. And so
And
then
that's
there's,
what I was, yeah.
Yeah, that's not
okay,
not a
so we're
problem.
in agreement.
Can I just ask a question with the fencing? There was at one point talking about being not any fencing because of an automatic pool cover. So is it they want fencing for privacy or is it for code compliance?
No, it's for code compliance. There is a new regulation, zoning regulation, that does not require fencing now with these automatic
Building regulations.
building reg. Yeah, so our clients will be putting a fence up.
Okay, well, that fence will need to go in front of that 5 foot buffer.
Got it. Yep.
Other questions? From the agency members?
Nope.
Okay.
I guess my only other concern is logistics. If the applicant, if this pool is going in this winter, Chuck, and fencing goes in, you have to be able to access for planting in this, if plantings don't occur until the spring. So, well,
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking the plantings during the cold weather isn't really that much of a problem. Actually, I think it's probably better to do it when they're dormant. There's probably a higher survival rate. So depending on the availability of the plantings that we can discuss, I think they will plant before any fencing goes in, obviously. It'd be very difficult to plant on that with that fence there.
I agree.
Yeah.
So and then my only other recommendation would be that this plan be updated to reflect that 5 foot buffer.
I'll go over the plantings with you and Maria, and I'll have that planned very quickly to you. And we'll try to get those plantings done probably within the next month or so.
And and to that point, it should have, I think, that, I don't know if this goes on the plan as well, but in addition to updating where that fence is going and the plantings, that there'll be this kind of 3-year monitoring program.
The conditions on there, that's fine. That's been added to plans as well, the wetland conditions.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful so that it's very clear what's expected. Any other comments?
Nope.
No, that's very quiet. Okay, well, we have a draft resolution that is for this application. And it takes into account
Sorry, can you see that? I just went crazy screen sharing. I'm sorry. I forgot I was. I'm a hot mess tonight. Oh, jeepers.
So, does someone want to make a motion incorporating this draft? How about I'll make a motion. So I make a motion that we approve application 23-56 122 Summer Hill Road with our standard language that's drafted and on the screen, with the inclusion that we, for a fourth condition, that the plans reflect that the fence will now be in front of the 5 foot vegetated buffer and that the wetland conditions associated with those plantings will also be on the plan.
Second.
All right, we have a second. Are there any other comments, suggestions?
I got none.
Okay, all in favor of the motion as stated, raise your hand, say aye.
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 Thank
Okay.
you.
And then we have 132, so we're done. So as Aaron said, and you can see on the agenda, 23-57, 454 Horse Pond Road has been withdrawn. So that's off our plate.
Excellent. Excellent.
It's very exciting
Excellent.
to just have stuff off our plate. But our next is also Summerhill, 132 Summerhill Road. This was, again, there was clearing and stockpiling materials. And staff drafted a report to and to show what they, oh good, Aaron's showing it. I'm not fast enough. And so it was cleared, and there's this corrective action that we discussed at the last meeting that has since been successfully completed. And I think that, is there more to that?
So this is, yeah, this is similar, where there is an approved building permit, an issued building permit, for this particular property, that showed all activities outside of the 100-foot upland review area. And so so that's the history. When we went out to 122, we discovered that this property as well had encroachment into that upland review area without a regulated activity permit. So the biggest concerns were stabilization and pulling storage of materials out of that upland review area. So the actual 100-foot upland review area was delineated, and so now we have 2 rows of silt fencing. That area between the upland review and the limit of disturbance has been seeded and hayed, and all stockpiles and ENS controls have been addressed accordingly. So at this point, because there is an approved building permit, it's really the developer who needs to explain to the agency whether or not he anticipates further activity within the upland. Are they looking to expand the lawn area? Are they looking to put in a pool at this house as well? And if so, it would be our recommendation to submit an application for a regulated activity permit to the agency. As you know, regulated activity permit doesn't mean an applicant or a property owner has to do the work. It's a permit to do that. It's given permission. When you look at a violation or a corrective action, those corrective action items are a requirement to resolve a violation. And so that's why, again, if you're looking to add some type of buffer area between, even if it's all lawn right up until the 100-foot upland review area, and you'd like an additional 5-foot buffer, this again would be the time to do that, I think, to make sure that that's incorporated into this property, because if the developer decides not to do any activity within the upland review, you still have this area that was cleared, and you still have an opportunity to create that permanent delineation.
Right. And that's the bottom part of your resolution when you scroll down is similar language.
Do I have? Oh, I do. Exactly. Right here. Thank you.
No, that's okay. That's why I was confused. I was like, where's the rest of it? So
must have scanned it double side. I don't know.
So I guess, this is similar to what we just did with the violation is, we either are saying the first option where we're like, fine, we're done, or the second option where we have the same. There's a 5-foot row of plantings with some kind of delineation showing that this is, a boundary. Does the agency have thoughts, preferences, comments on either of these two options? Oh, you're muted.
It seems to me that we should probably go with the second option and be consistent with what we did on the adjacent lot.
Yes, I agree. Other
I'm just
comment?
wondering, is this closer to the wetlands than the other lot, or is it the same? I mean, does,
I
I
We
don't,
had
about the
a
same.
plan with both of them, but
It's about the same.
yeah.
it is,
Yeah.
Is that attached to the agenda? That, to the violation, Maria, that sketch?
this,
Yes.
I don't have, to
I
the
can
Done
share
agenda.
with.
that
It
and
is,
show
yeah,
you,
I don't have access.
just.
It's in the-
Show you.
It's in the
Oh, inspection notes.
application materials.
is it? Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
remember doing the sidewalk and
Yeah, so this was.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
was kind of marked up from where we were, just based on site notes from an inspection, but this is the lot you just completed,
right,
with the pool and the limit of approximate disturbance here. And so this is the upland review area as shown, which is relatively close to the back of this house.
right.
So realistically speaking, I would assume that in a house of this scale, that the developer will likely be coming back to the agency to seek a regulated activity permit to extend this lawn area, at least to the slope. This is pretty limiting here. And that was one of our comments, at the issuance of the permit itself for this unit was, we had quite a back and forth with Stephen's office and the developer to make sure that indeed the location of this silt fence right on the wetland line was realistic for developing this lot.
Yeah, just for clarification, I spoke to the developer today and we will be back. You'll see us next month for an application for a regulated activity for this lot.
Okay. That's a good thing.
yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So that being said, I'll go back to the motions. Depending on how the agency wishes to proceed, Chuck and his office may be able to address that proactively in their plans prior
I
to
believe we
submitting for
will.
regulated activity.
Yes, we absolutely will.
Yeah, I think that it's no different than what we just looked at to the south, with a
And
fence
the other,
and shrubbery, and then hopefully they can incorporate that into their lot development. I don't think that our decision should be any different. I think that would look funny. I agree with the draft resolution. That is the second choice.
Would you like to turn that into a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the draft resolution prepared by staff for 132 Summer Hill Road. That indicates that we acknowledge that the property owner has complied with the corrective action, and that we further require that a permanent delineation between the maintained lawn and the inland wetland area be established, and that should include a 5-foot deep row of native shrubs and plantings, as well as a fence, and that the plants are required to have 80% survival after a 3-year period with annual reporting to staff.
I'll second. Any more discussion on this?
There's no pool on this one. Was a fence part of that?
I think what the drafted motion says, a permanent delineation between maintained lawn, and it could be natural rock.
Okay. All right. Yeah, just clarification.
Yeah.
The only question I have for staff is, are you looking to maintain the same 30-day deadline for submission of a planting plan and then the May 31st, 2024 installation, as well as your 80%?
I think that makes sense.
Yes.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. Well, all in favor of this draft resolution as amended with the dates for the planting submission and the actual planting. All in favor, say aye. Raise your hand.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chuck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks, Chuck.
Okay. So now we have another show cause hearing for 129 Green Hill Road. There's a complaint of clearing of vegetation. It looked like trees were cut down, deposition of materials within 100-foot watercourse and inland wetland upland review. What I saw on our application was just the complaint and some photos of the site.
Yes.
Okay. And is this something we should schedule a site walk for?
I would, yes, this came in, there was a neighbor that had come in a couple times. They didn't know the address when I had gone out. They said trees were being cut. But they didn't know the address when I'd gone out there and saw no visible trucks anywhere in the area that they were, talking about. And then they did come back, followed up with a complaint in pictures, and the pictures that were taken were from, their property, not from the other property. I did speak with the property owner, issued the violation letter, and we just couldn't coordinate because it all happened relatively quickly just almost before the agenda was posted, and we couldn't coordinate getting out there, staff to go see. So he was aware, he's online now, and that you would possibly be walking the property if you saw fit.
Okay.
So Maria, just to clarify, this, you mailed an informal or did you mail an enforcement?
I did both. I mailed first a letter saying we were aware that there was some activity, and then we got the pictures. So I sent a cease and desist, which I don't think got online.
It's not uploaded. That's
Yeah.
what, I can, do you have that accessible that has the?
No, because I can't get into, I'm not on the drive.
Okay,
It booted me off the drive.
Well, so what I can give you those directives that were in there, and the property owners are here this evening as well to explain the work that they have begun on their property, and give you a little background as far as what has happened. But I agree that I think, well, let's do that, and then we can talk about our next steps moving forward.
Okay. So, is it
Matthew, Joseph? Yep, he can.
So you can.
There he goes. Yep.
What should I do?
So you can just explain what you're intending to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've started farming. So we have 5 hives of bees. We have chickens, and we planted an orchard. We've got almond, peaches, apples up front, and then there was when we purchased the property, I think it's like 3 years of of growth. So we wanted access to the water to be able to feed not only the orchard, but also the animals. And we want to make it, it's a small pond. It's maybe a quarter of an acre and was full. There were already trees in it that we needed to pull out as well. I'm guessing, I haven't been under it yet, but I'm guessing a bunch of leaves and vegetation in the water that we want to pull out. We want to put fish in it, and along the rim of the pond, we want to plant vegetation that will take the fish waste and use it for growth. And then along the edge of the pond, we want to plant berries, raspberries, blueberries, etc. And then with the trees and branches that have come down, we want to chip those and then make like a walkway around the pond. Ideally, we're trying to create a self-sustaining ecosystem. So we've got water coming out from the pond to the plants, to the animals, and then we have rain chains from the house that we want to send the rain water to the pond. There is next door is called Deer Creek. That actual creek runs through our property, and we want to preserve that. Which comes from the pond. The pond is the source of Deer Creek. So we took down some trees that some of them were dead, some of them were leaning over the pond, some of them were in the pond. We want to pull those out to make the pond more of a habitat, I guess. Like we'd like fish in the pond and for the deer to be able to get water from the pond, etc.
Okay, so I guess from a regulatory perspective, you've mentioned a couple of things, some which sound like regulated activities of future, what you'd like to do in the future versus what you've done so far.
Yeah.
So as of today, the only activities you have begun are the felling of trees. You've cut trees within the pond, the water course, and is there any in that fringe area around the pond as well?
Is there any what?
Trees along the edges of the pond that you cut as well, or just ones within the water course?
Within and then on the edge. So some of them, if I can share. Second, there we go.
My understanding is you have not pulled those trees out of the water course at this point.
Correct. At this point, no. So correct. So we want to pull these trees out. We want the pond to flourish. We want to get that duckweed out there, out of there. We want it. We want aeration in the pond. Correct.
Okay.
No, that's not that.
So
Sorry. The kids.
So my thoughts would be that I think to fully understand the scope of what's occurred out on site, it would be appropriate to schedule this property for a site visit at your next meeting on November 18th. Just from the cease and desist order, it had one action that was required, which was cease any further landscape related activities within the 100-foot inland wetland and watercourses upland review area. It would be staff's recommendation that the agency uphold that order until you have an opportunity to see that and see what else is proposed. I don't know if you would like to have any other proposals come before you. The only thing I'm, in anticipation for your December meeting, the only thing that I'm struggling with a little bit is the farming aspect. Farming is protected under the statutes, the inland wetland statutes. However, not all activities associated with that, and not necessarily all of the things you mentioned may fall under that, Matthew. So I think it might be helpful to kind of get a full scope of what you're looking to do. And maybe that would be first with staff to, hear what you want to do on site, and we can kind of guide you as far as what additional information, perhaps a wetland delineation. If the agency feels that right away now that you're going to want a wetland delineation, you're welcome to amend the corrective action order and have the property owner get started on that now. Just in the effort of time.
Yeah, I think that would probably be a good idea. So that we have an idea of yes, the extent of the wetland and the connections with Deer Creek. And yeah, I think a wetland delineation would be great to amend to the cease and desist. Yeah, go ahead, Martin.
Yeah, I just have a question. Is the pond north of the house in a wooded area?
It is within the wooded. It is northeast, but mostly north.
Okay. In a wooded area. I'm just looking at a
Right
map.
here.
I'm
Mhm.
seeing it. And yeah, it sounds yeah, got you. Thank you. That's what I was looking at. It sounds like, you guys want to do a lot with your property, that there's a brook, that extends from the pond. I mean, there's wetlands that are in play here.
Yeah,
And I think it's important to get a soil scientist out there to delineate it and come up with a solid plan with some assistance from a wetland scientist that you can bring to us, and
absolutely.
hopefully make it all happen.
Yeah. The only yes, 100% agree. I am no expert compared to everybody on this commission. So yes, any sort of input is absolutely welcome. The only I have a question about, and I would love input. Here's the pond, and it comes out here and goes this way. There's actually a bridge down here that's in the woods, overgrown. But we have so here's the house. Over here is we're working, I think, with Yukon. We're submitting or the state, we're submitting soil samples to get an idea of what we're dealing with, because we want to we wanted to plant crops over here. However, the runoff, we are below Deer Creek subdivision over here. So the runoff comes this way while the creek goes that way. This area over here is frequently swamped, especially after a rain. And we're wondering if there should be some sort of culvert or drainage. I'm happy to, with guidance, carve out so that the water and the runoff goes into the pond.
Yeah, it sounds like you need both an engineer and a soil scientist to help you with that. Come up with a plan and come on back.
Absolutely. 100%. That's what I was getting at, is we need an engineer to come out and look at that and go, okay, there's no drainage. That's why you have this swamp over here.
Well, so I think the question is to first determine if the low-lying area you're referring to is an inland wetland.
Correct.
So
yes.
Having a soil scientist come out as wetlands are delineated by soil type, that I think would be your first step to see what you're dealing with.
Okay.
Farming activities within a wetland may be an as of right activity. However, that determination needs to be made by the agency with a specific, with you would request that determination from them. And in doing so, provide, scope of what you're looking to do. That doesn't necessarily include drainage. I think it really depends on the scope of what kind of improvements. Planting crops is different than regrading and things like that. So I think we really would need to get more details from you at this immediate stage with respect to the violation, the wetland flagging, and having that placed on some type of map for the agency to see would be a good first step, and then to be able to walk the site, and then perhaps follow that up for the next meeting. Now, you may or may not be able to have the inland wetlands delineated by the December 4th meeting. Do you wish to give them till January to have that done? What's your thought?
You're on, Martin, you're on mute. Martin, you're on mute. I can't hear you.
Are you talking to us, Martin?
No, now you're back on mute.
Sorry. Yeah,
There we
no,
go.
I just want to say again, it sounds like you need an engineer and a soil scientist and to get everything figured out, try and plan ahead, come on back to us.
So in the meantime, what we were trying to do before the freeze is get the trees out of the pond so they don't soak up a lot of the water.
They're not going to soak up the water if they're
Okay.
already.
Okay.
They're, yeah, they'll be fine. I do think, so I think it might be hard, depending, to get a wetland delineation by December 4th. If the agency's okay, I think a January deadline is fine as part of the cease and desist. But that means I think we should still get out there while the weather is good, November 18th, to look at the property. And then I haven't seen the cease and desist, but I assume it's what it sounds like, where there's no more activity until there's a delineation and a further discussion on.
Well, so the cease and desist order has cease any further landscape related activities. It does not include having the wetlands delineated. So that would be a motion that the agency would need to take now at the show cause hearing to amend the cease and desist order into a corrective action.
Okay.
Upholding the, no further activities, no, still stand down and keep status quo of no more activities. But that you would need to engage a soil scientist to have the inland wetland boundaries delineated by the January 8th, 2024 meeting.
Okay. Yeah, I think that will be helpful all around to have that delineated. And it really will make, there's not as much that we can do without a delineation. So we can do that. Are there other questions or comments for Mr. Joseph?
If you find at the site walk that you feel it's unstable or something of that nature, then you can plan to have this as a discussion item at your December meeting as well, or we can advise Mr. Joseph to install adequate ENS controls, in the interim.
Okay, that would be helpful since we haven't seen it.
Yeah.
So this is a motion, Erin, you're saying?
Yes, you should, because it is a show cause hearing. Yes, you should.
Okay.
You should make that motion.
Well, I move that we amend the cease and desist order to include having having a wetland delineation completed by our January 8th meeting.
I second.
Okay.
Were you
Is there-
done?
Yeah, I think, is there any, but I was trying to think, is there anything else I was supposed to add? But that covers everything.
And you're looking to uphold the ceasing of any further
Yes,
landscape.
it was that, yes, so
In addition to that,
it was in
have it
addition
delineated.
to the cease and desist is to have the wetland delineation.
Got it.
Okay, all in favor of that motion? Raise your hand, say aye.
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 Okay, and yeah, so November 18th is okay?
Yeah, that's a Saturday, correct?
It's
Yeah,
a Saturday morning.
usually, yep, 8 o'clock or so.
8 o'clock in the morning.
Early,
I'll get the kids up.
that'll be fun.
So I have to hop off. I'm so
Yeah.
sorry. I think we have enough people to
Yeah,
vote on
just-
the remainder.
Yep,
I
thank you.
apologize.
That's
Thank you,
okay.
Martin.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Martin.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, and I think, is that all that we need from Mr. Joseph, Aaron? Mary?
Yes.
Yes.
And then we can continue to correspond, Mr. Joseph, and give you some names of some soil scientists and help you along those lines to get you in the right direction.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you.
coming.
Absolutely. Yeah, on the 18th.
18th.
Yes.
Yes,
We'll be-
we'll send you an email. Yep,
Thank you.
thanks.
Okay,
Bright and early.
all right, so we have section 13 approvals. We've got Windward Lane, Madison Springs, Grouse Lane, and Winter Hill. Does anybody want to, do you need to run through these? Do you want to briefly? Do we need
You
to
don't unless you have questions or
no-
concerns.
I have faith.
I have no questions.
Okay. I see no questions. We're gonna move on. We're quickly moving on. So we've got two sets of meeting minutes. We've got the walk minutes from October 14th and the regular meeting minutes from our October 2nd meeting. I didn't see there were a few typos, but nothing that fundamentally changed. Well, it was sad. My name was misspelled, but I'm gonna breathe. I'm fine with that. On the sidewalk minutes.
Oh, that's even worse. That was Maria.
It's fine.
Hey, Joe's forgotten my name twice, so.
I didn't see any there. And then I think, amendments to meetings are usually, just added afterwards. And I don't feel that with the typos, they don't fundamentally change anything. I didn't see anything. Did anybody else have any comments?
No, I have to admit, I read them quickly, but I didn't see anything of consequence either.
Okay. Well, we can do this as a batch, if that's okay. Is that okay? Is everybody okay?
Yep.
All in favor of approving the minutes from our October, let's see, 14th site walk minutes and our October 2nd regular meeting minutes? Raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and I have lost the agenda, but I'm pretty sure that we are at the end here.
You're at
Listen.
remarks.
That's it. Remarks. You've got remarks.
I have no remarks.
No, okay, yeah.
Does anybody have remarks? Or I don't have any. Aaron or Maria, other remarks?
No, the only comment that we had is that we did receive an
Sidewalks?
application
Right.
late Friday morning for regulated activity on Neck Road. This is associated with the Stone Lane DARC property that the agency recently walked for a new single-family dwelling. This is for a new design that shows a water main crossing through the wetland system, roughly 150 feet for the water main, which I'm assuming is because Connecticut Water is requiring the water main to run through the property under ownership by the DRCs and not through an easement. I just from initial glance, neither Maria or I have had an opportunity to fully review the application. But just at surface glance, it is a one-page civil sheet without any supporting wetland documentation as far as details specifically on how this wetland crossing will be achieved, any assessment of the wetlands or mitigation efforts. So I am comfortable saying that I think it's incomplete. It's up to you. It came in after the agenda was posted, so it's not uploaded. It's really at the discretion of the commission if you wish to walk that now, or if you'd like to wait to the next meeting to review what's in the application materials and have an opportunity to hear from the applicant and ultimately to determine whether or not this is a significant impact and would require a public hearing.
I think,
or perhaps third-party review. That's the standard language here.
right. I think without any documentation, it's really hard for us to make that determination. It sounds like we definitely need to walk it. It's hard to determine significant activity without, and if it's incomplete, that will make it even more challenging.
This is the same property we walked 4 months or 5 months ago.
I feel like it was longer than that.
Yeah, it's Stone
Neck
Road.
Road?
It goes from Neck Road to Stone Road.
Right.
Yeah.
Do they have a map of laying out where that line's going to go through? I mean, I remember
there's a
walking the
one-page
lot.
survey.
Yeah,
There's a site development plan showing that. However, there's no additional wetland, supplemental wetland information.
No. Okay.
My initial impression is that this was submitted as a placeholder to be received.
Yeah,
but
Okay.
that's
may need additional information.
We can walk it again.
Yeah, well, if I don't think I walked it the last time, and I think, putting 150 feet of water crossing through a wetland is non-trivial, and without supporting documentation, I mean, it's, people should be submitting complete applications because otherwise it's, it's hard for us to do anything, and it's chews up the time clock. So I don't think my inclination is that we're just going to have to wait and see until next month on whatever else is submitted with this, if there's anything else, or to make a determination.
I agree with that.
So it may or may not be added to the November 18th or no?
I mean, Aaron and Maria, I mean, do we have anything to go on? Is there enough for it to go on the November 18th?
That's really, I mean, that's up to you. If you want to walk it, based on the information that's submitted and have the applicant,
Well, I haven't even seen it because it's not up and it's not posted. So
Yeah.
it's really hard.
You could walk it, I guess, and then
or you could
discuss it.
table it till December.
Yeah.
And look
I
at the application materials and schedule a walk accordingly then.
Yeah, I think we table it and just do our whatever we're doing, Green Hill. Unless people have strong feelings.
I'm good with that. I think that's right.
I feel like I would not have enough information if there isn't enough, without a complete application. It's hard to go out and look at a piece of property and understand what they're going to do if it's not out there. Okay. Are there other things that we should talk about?
No.
No, like it's late. It's like 11 o'clock in Friday time.
It was before, right?
Well, the good news is you've taken some actions, so your next agenda will be a little shorter.
Is that a problem?
That's right, because there's nothing else accepted or received. That's very exciting. Thank you, Aaron. Okay, I'll take our last motion for the evening.
I move we adjourn.
I second. All right, all in favor? All right, I'll see
Aye.
you guys in a couple weeks.
See you in a
Thank you
couple
all.
days. Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.
Thanks, Raquel.
Bye.